Hey guys, this is your pharmacist Sidra and welcome to Pharmacy Tech Study Guide. In today's video, I'm going to talk about some of the commonly used abbreviations in pharmacy setting or hospital setting which you really need to remember as a pharmacy technician. Now, communication in pharmacy is mainly just with abbreviations. We never use full words to communicate any medical information, just to make it easier and just to make this medical language universal for everyone to understand across the board. So this might be very intimidating for a lot of people, but once you understand it, you get the basics, then it will be very simple for you to understand and remember. So in this video, I have these abbreviations categorized for you based on their route of administration, timing, measurement, and some of the other miscellaneous ones. So let's first start. See, we use the 24-hour military time. We don't use just the 12-hour time. So that's something to remember or keep in mind before I get into it. And some of the basic letters, if you understand the meaning of it, that's going to be universal across the board, and that would help you kind of navigate the other abbreviations, and you wouldn't have to remember every single one. Like for instance, if you look at Q means every. So anytime you see the letter Q, that should pertain in your head that, oh, this is something we're talking about every maybe tablet or every 8 hours, 6 hours, but Q means every. So you'll get more understanding of it when I talk a little bit more about it in later on with examples. But for now, just remember Q means every. Now, in the next one, you see where it says QD. If you just look at Q right here, that means we're talking something about every, right? So Q means every, and D, remember, is day. So D for day. So QD would be every day. The next one is QOD. Now, can you guess here already that Q would be every, D would be day, and O would stand for other. So that would be an easy way of remembering it. QOD, meaning every other day, right? The next up is TID. This is a very common one. T means three. So T for three, a simple one to remember. So TID would be 3 times a day. Now I skipped BID here. Didn't really skip it, but I forgot to mention it. BID is twice a day. But I really wanted you to remember TID first, because if you know T is for 3, then the BID would be easier to recognize that it's twice a day, and T is for 3, which is 3 times a day. Then we have QID. Now here, this can get a little tricky because remember when I said Q is for every. Now don't confuse this with these Q, because here QID means 4 times a day. All right, so here I would remember Q as, quadrivalent, quadruplets. So that means 4. So QID would be 4 times a day. The next up is kind of really easy going, which is FID, means F for 5, so 5 times a day. So off this list, some of them you really have to remember, like if you can remember BID, which is twice a day, then the TID and QID and FID kind of gets easier for you to remember, because if BID is twice a day, TID would be 3 times a day, QID, Q for quadruple here, and so QID would be 4 times a day, F for 5, that would be 5 times a day. Okay, so the next ones that I'm going to talk about would be still associated with Q. Remember, Q is every. Now here I'm going to give you some of the examples. So when the prescription says Q 8 hours or Q8 8H, then that means every 8 hours, because your prescription may read something like this. Now, what does this mean? 1 tablet by mouth. PO is by mouth. I'm going to talk about it later again. But Q 8 hours means every 8 hours. And here's the thing to remember. When I said in pharmacy, or in medical terminology, we use the military clock of 24 hours. And so every 8 hours is within the 24 hours. So every 8 hours, 8 divided by 24 would be 3. So that means this should read as 1 tablet to be taken 3 times a day. Make sense? Then you can also have every 6 hours. Now again, if you do 6 divided by 24, that would be 4. So that would translate into 4 times a day. Another one would be Q 4 hours. That means a person is supposed to take medication every 4 hours within 24 hours. So what would be the frequency in that case? We're going to simply divide 4 with 24, and that comes up to be 6. So in this case, every 4 hours means a patient is to take their medication 6 times a day. Now the next up is still within the family of Q, which would be, if you say Q is every, and we know AM means morning, right? So Q AM would be every morning. Similarly, PM, we all know, means evening. So if a prescription says Q PM, that means every evening, right? And then just remember HS means night. So this is the abbreviation for night. But if it says QHS, that means every night. But if you want to say it in a more sophisticated way, it would be every night at bedtime. Some of the other ones that you really want to remember in terms of timing of administration would be STAT, which is stat. This means immediately. I'm sorry. This reads as immediately. All right, now I'm going to have a quick knowledge check question on the next screen for you of the abbreviations that we have learned so far. And you can see that the order here on the screen reads amoxicillin 500 milligram, quantity 16. And the directions read 2 stat, then 1 Q8H. Now quickly go in the comment sections and write down what those zip codes mean. Okay, so the next one is PRN. PRN means as needed. If I substitute this N with A, then that becomes as needed for anxiety. So this A would be for anxiety. So PRN means as needed and PRA means as needed for anxiety. All right, the last 2 abbreviations that I want to discuss in the timing of administration would be AC and PC. Now, PC, there are 2 ways of remembering these that I use and it works for me. You can find whatever way works for me, but I'm going to share my 2 silly ways of remembering it. PC, you can either remember it with P for post, right? So PC would be post meal or after me. That's one way of remembering it. Another silly way of remembering this for me, and I don't know if any of you can relate with it. I remember when I was a kid, we used to have a PC and we'll come home from school and we would run to go play on the PC, but my mom will always stop us and say, oh, you're gonna go play on the PC after you eat your meal. And so since then, this is kind of stuck with me that we wouldn't be able to play on our PC until after meal. I don't know if you can relate with it, but if you can't, then this is a pretty good way of remembering PC, which is after meal. Meaning you play on your PC after you had your meal. And you would always want to turn on your AC, which is air conditioner, before you eat a meal, right? Because you want your room to be nice and cold and you want it to be comfortable before you eat the meal. So you want the air conditioner on before you eat a meal. That's just a silly way of remembering it. If that doesn't work for you, then, just P for post. Just remember P for post is after meal, and this other one is going to be before meal. All right, now let's move on to the next category of our abbreviations. The next category of abbreviation that I'm going to talk about is the common routes of administration. We all know that eyes and ears are common routes of administration in pharmacy. You use your eye drops, ear drops, eye ointments or ear ointments through this route, and you have 2 ears and 2 eyes, right and left, and this could get very confusing in pharmacy on how to remember which one is right ear, which one is left ear in terms of abbreviations. So here is the summary of these abbreviations. AU is both ears. Now the way I remember is A for audio, and we know audio is associated with the ears, so A would be ears. And for both would be U. The way I remember is that there are these lines in U, so that refers to both. Again, this is just my way of remembering it, just a silly way, but hey, at the end of the day, the silly things is what we retain for the longest period of time. So if that works for you, you're welcome. Okay, and then we have AD. Now, remember, a lot of times, right side is the dominant side for a lot of people, right? And so D would be right side because right side is the dominant side. D for dominant, and dominant side for most of the people is right. So A again for audio and D for right because D is the dominant side. So right ear. AD is right ear. And then the other one in AS would be left ear. Okay? And then we have OU. Now O, there are 2 ways to remember this one. O is for ocular. Ocular means eyes. Ophthalmic also means eyes. And if you're not able to remember that, then just remember the shape of the eyes is a little bit, not quite round, but a little bit ovalish. So O for oval and eyes. So that's another way of remembering it. That's just a little weird eye shape over here. You can see that it's almost round or ocular or oval. So that's your O for eyes. And again, U is for both because it's including, it refers to the left and right side. Both of these lines of U refers to both of these eyes. So U would be both. And then again, OD, can you tell, is right eye because D for dominant and right side is dominant side for a lot of people. So OD would be right eye, OS would be left eye. Okay, now some of the other common routes of administration are oral. Then we also have under the tongue. So oral is PO. PO means by mouth. Then have SL. SL means sublingual. And if you've heard that there are language courses or lingual means tongue. So sublingual means under the tongue. So under the tongue. Just remember L would be for lingual. And lingual refers to language, and language is with your tongue. You speak any language with your tongue. So and sub means under. So SL means under the tongue. Just remember that you don't want to confuse SL, which is sublingual, with SQ, which is subcutaneous. Subcutaneous means under the skin. So SQ is either subcutaneous, or if you want to simplify it, it would be under the skin. Okay, the next two we have are IM, which is intramuscular, M for muscle. So IM would be intramuscular. Intra means within. So this case, IM means that your medication is being administered within the muscle. And then we have IV, which is intravenous. Venous refers to veins, and intra means within, so or inside. So IV would be inside the veins. Similarly, we have ID, which is intradermal. The next abbreviation that I want to talk about in the routes of administration is the one which you can easily confuse with the timing of administration, which was PRN. Remember, PRN was as needed. Now, so that's as needed. If you remove N and that becomes PR, that's per rectum. Or you can simply say rectally. So remember, don't confuse PRN with PR, because PRN is as needed and PR is per rectally or rectum. And then if you put PRF, that means as needed for. So here are the three that I have mentioned all together, just so you are able to recognize them and not confuse them. If you see VAG, that's vaginally. And then REC is rectally. And then if you see NEB, that means via nebulizer. So NEB stands for nebulizer, or so this is via nebulizer. The next category in the abbreviations I want to talk about would be measurements, and this could be measurements in terms of solid forms, which are your tablets and capsules, or it could be your liquids, which are your syrups, suspensions, injections, things like that. So in terms of tablets and capsules, I know this one is something that everybody already knows. T is for tablets, C is for capsules. So I'm not going to write that down on the board for you, but I do want to let you know what would be the abbreviation to quantify that. Like if you have one tablet or if you have two tablets, you're not going to write 1, 2, 3 in terms of like 1, 2, 3, like your normal math numbers. You're not going to write numbers like that. Rather, you're going to use these numerals right here. So if it's 1 like this, there would be 1. This refers to 1 tablet, 2 tablets, or 3. You will also see them written like this. So this little T with 1 dot on it would refer to 1. And if you see 2 lines with 2 dots on, that means 2. And if you see this, that means 3. So that could be 1 or 2 tablets, 3 tablets. And then we've already talked about PO, which is oral. So next on the screen, I'm going to have a quick knowledge check for you based on these abbreviations. So go ahead, take a look at it, and do let me know in the comments if you answered those SIC codes correctly or not. Okay, so the next up we have is SS. SS means 1/2. Next we have GTT. That means drop. It could be a drop of liquid, a drop of eye drops, drop of ear drop. Now, if it's a single drop, that's GTT. But if you see GTS, that means drops. So that's the plural, if I can say that word right. So GTS is the plural of drops. GTT is just single drop. GTS would be multiple drops, so drops. Then we have ml, which is milliliter. Mostly in your medical terminology or pharmacy, all the liquids are measured in milliliters. And just an FYI, 1 milliliter has 20 drops in it. Okay, so ml is milliliters and 1 milliliter, which is ml, has 20 drops in it. Next is TSP. TSP means teaspoon, and 1 teaspoon is 5 mLs. Okay, then we have tablespoon, which is TBSP, which is tablespoon, and 1 tablespoon is 15 ml. Now, it's very important for you to remember how much is ml in 1 tablespoon or 1 teaspoon, because when we write the directions for the customer or patients, we never write take 1 teaspoon or take 1 tablespoon, because we don't want to encourage patients to use the kitchen tablespoons or teaspoons, because they could be all very different since they're made from different manufacturers, and there's no one standard unit of measurement for that. So those home or kitchen tablespoon, teaspoons could be different, and if the patients are using those, that could result in altered dosage delivered to the patient. That's why you always want to write exact mLs. You never tell patients to take 1 teaspoon or a tablespoon. And then also, when you are writing the directions in mLs, you always want to give them a measuring spoon or a measuring dropper or a syringe. That way the patients are able to measure their dose accurately. Next up is FLOZ. So that's fluid ounce, OZ ounce. And 1 fluid ounce, okay, so tablespoon was, tablespoon is 15 mLs. Next is fluid ounce. So 1 fluid ounce is 30 mLs. This is something that you will definitely need to remember, and I will be discussing all of this in a separate video as well when we will go towards our math problems. But I do want to repeat all of this information over and over the most I can in every single video, because this is something that should be on your fingertips. You cannot forget this one, because let's say even if you know the math calculations, you know how to solve a problem, but if this conversion isn't correct, then you're basically not delivering the right dosage. And you cannot afford any math error in pharmacy, because that means you can definitely harm, and worst case, you can even kill the patient with even a single decimal placed wrong in your math figures. So always be very, very particular about your math question. Make sure all of these conversions are on your fingertips. Okay, next, the last one is L for liter, and this would be 1 liter would have 1000 mLs. So these are all of your measurement units or abbreviations for liquids. Next up, I'm going to erase all of this and write the measurement abbreviations for your solids. Okay, so the next set of abbreviations that we were going to talk about are the solids. Here, kg represents kilogram. That's the unit of measurement of solid. We normally do not use kilogram. We almost always convert kilograms into milligrams. So you should know how to convert if the weight is given in kilogram or gram into milligram, because milligram is the standard unit dose for your solids. Now, if the weight is given in kilograms, then that's the standard unit. Like weight of a human body is what I'm talking about here. Normally in United States, we measure the weight, or we have the human weights taken as in pounds. So you should know what the pound is in conversion with kilograms. So LB in general is for pound, and so 1 kilogram is 2.2 pounds, right? And then G is for gram. Now here, 1 kilogram is equal to 1,000 grams, okay? And then mg is for milligram. Here, 1 gram is 1,000 milligram. The last one is microgram, mcg, and here 1 mg is 1,000 microgram. So if you know these basic conversions, you can simply convert them. Like 1 gram would be 6 zeros in terms of micrograms. If you know all these basics, you will be able to remember this, or you can simply figure that one out. So that's why it's very important that you go through these basic abbreviations or basic conversions. This video is not really about the conversions or metrics, so I'm not gonna go in detail. This was just a little FYI, so you can remember when you hear it over and over, but this is something you must remember. Just figure out a way that works the best for you, but this is just one simple way of putting everything together for you, because in the end, when you have so much to remember, it's very easy for you to confuse all these things and they can easily get mixed up. So try and remember it like these small charts and correlations. That way it's easier for you and it will retain for longer period of time and rather forever. So these were the common abbreviations in terms of route of administration. We talked about the timing of the medications. We also talked about the measurements. Now I'm gonna erase these and share some of the miscellaneous abbreviations that I couldn't really fit in any of these categories. So let's erase this and I will be back. So here are some of the miscellaneous abbreviations that you must remember. The first one is DAW, that means dispense as written. Anytime you see this abbreviation on a prescription, that means the doctor is recommending or requesting certain brand of the medication. Let's say if a doctor writes a prescription for Zoloft, 100 milligram, one every day, and it says DAW, that means you have to dispense Zoloft, which is the name brand, and a lot of the insurances may not pay for it because the name brand is going to be super expensive. Since the doctor has requested DAW, which is dispense as written, therefore you cannot substitute it to generic. And in some cases, if there is a prescription, let's say for spironolactone, now that's a generic, but if the doctor says dispense as written, and in the comments the doctor say dispense, let's say Amneal brand only, that's also dispense as written. Now there are different categories of dispense as written DAW. It could be DAW1, DAW2 that I can talk about in a separate video. That's a topic on its own, but in general, you must remember that DAW means dispense as written. That means you have to word by word follow the doctor's order and you cannot deviate from that order at all. Next up is QS. QS means quantity sufficient. This is often written when the doctor writes a prescription for, let's say, Septra DS. Take 1 tablet 2 times a day for 1 week, for example, and the doctor does not write the quantity and just say in the quantity, instead of writing 14 or 28 or whatever, the doctor just writes QS. That means you just have to dispense the quantity sufficient for the required order, which is 1 tablet twice a day for 7 days. That would be 14 tablets, right? So this is just a short form where the doctor is like in a bit of a hurry and cannot calculate the total quantity dispensed for you. So in that case, you just dispense the quantity sufficient that's required for the prescription. I know in the tablets, it's not really that hard, but in liquids, often the doctor will write, take 15 mLs, for example, twice a day or 4 times a day for 10 days. And in that case, the total quantity dispense will require some kind of math. And the doctor is probably in a hurry, and that's one way of writing an order. That way, a technician, or when the pharmacy is dispensing it, the pharmacist can check the total quantity dispensed for the doctor. So this little C right here with the little line on the top refers to width. So anytime you see a prescription, something like take 1 tablet by mouth every day with this, with C, and then next it says meal or something like that, that means take it with meal. NR means no refill. If a prescription has NR box checked, that means that prescription has no refill remaining after that prescription has been filled. The last one I'm going to talk for this video is UD, or it could be UTD. Both of those abbreviations mean use as directed. Alright, so that was all for the abbreviations. I hope categorizing these abbreviations for you really helped you understand them better and help you remember them better with those little tricks that I shared. If you do have any questions, please let me know, and do answer those knowledge check questions in the comments, and I will see you guys in the comments with the correct answer to those knowledge check questions. If you have any other video recommendations or questions, do write them in the comments or just send me an email and I'll be happy to answer. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, you take care. Bye. Hey guys, if you found value in this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends and family, and remember to subscribe to stay up to date on new weekly videos.